A door slammed open against the wall. Boots crashed across broken glass. A rifle swung up fast from behind the stair rail. He ducked, shoulder cracked hard on the floorboards. The second shot shredded the banister inches above his spine. He rolled, yanked his revolver free. Breath ripped shallow through his throat. A shadow dropped from the loft with a thud. He fired once, twice. Something struck his temple. He staggered, vision flicked black. Hands clawed at his holster. He kneed forward, caught nothing but air. The floor tilted under him. A boot pinned his wrist. He looked up. The barrel touched his eye. His arms ached first, then his back, then his ribs. The pain came in stages as consciousness staggered back in. He blinked, but the sun had not yet reached this corner of the house. Dust floated through dry air. The chair beneath him shifted as he breathed. Wood groaned with every motion. He pulled at the ropes once. They held. The knot dug into his left wrist. Coarse, old. He knew the feel. Thick like the halter rope they used on colts. Same twist, same burn. His mouth felt packed with cloth, but it was only dryness. Tongue heavy, jaw clenched. He swallowed, but it scraped. Somewhere close by, a fly buzzed in tight, angry circles, then vanished. He tilted his head. Slow. Careful. The chair rocked forward a little, then back again. The room hadn't changed. Old paint still peeling. Ceiling cracked where the summer heat had split the beams. A rifle rack with no rifle. A dent in the floor where his father fell. He saw that fall again, not from the outside but from behind his own boyish eyes. Saw the old man jerk, clutch his chest, collapse. The same chair now held him, a different kind of death. He breathed through his nose and listened. 2 voices in the house, both male at first. The older one was talking low near the kitchen. Then silence. Then a new sound. A soft sob from another room. A woman. A short whimper like something had cut her just slightly. Steel scraped against stone. Sharpening. Slow. Rhythmic. He shifted again. Rope bit skin. His shoulder flexed, and he worked the knot against the edge of the chair post. Skin split on his wrist. Warm trickle. The chair creaked loud and he froze. Silence. Then footsteps overhead. The wood sighed under weight. Not boots, bare feet. He pictured dust on toes. Long pause. One more step, then another. He looked to the open doorway, bright rectangle from the hall. Nothing moved inside it. A hum started in his ears. Low, threatening. Not from the house, from his own chest. Panic clawed upward. He pressed it down. The footsteps crossed the ceiling slowly. He counted. 9 steps. Then nothing. Voices again. Closer now. The woman said something he could not hear. Then something he did. The name of his dog. His breath caught. That dog died 5 years ago, burned in the barn. Only one man knew that name besides him, and that man had burned too. He started twisting harder. The rope cut, deep, but the knot began to shift. His heel pressed down. He rocked slightly forward, then paused. The stairwell groaned. A long shadow stretched across the hall. Someone was coming down slow. No rush, no talk, just the weight of boot on wood. A shape took form in the light. Long coat, rifle low. He stopped breathing. The man stepped into full light, and the rifle lowered. The barrel hung loose beside his leg, but his fingers never left the trigger. His boot stopped just inside the doorframe. He looked down at the bound man. No movement, no speech. Just the kind of stare that knew too much. The chair creaked again as the captive shifted. His wrist throbbed now, hot, sticky. Blood soaked the rope and pooled inside his palm. He blinked slow. Sand itched behind his eyelids. The man knelt, one knee to the floor, one hand still on the gun. The other reached out and touched the edge of the chair, just for a second, then pulled back. He looked older than the voice, worn hard, eyes set too deep. He spoke low, calm, like reading a number out loud. 3 dead in the barn, 1 in the house. Fire reached the hills by morning. That was 10 years back. The captive said nothing, only stared past the man's shoulder, toward the open window where the sky sat wide and empty. Dust curled along the sill. His throat tightened. The man leaned closer. Breath smelled like tobacco and heat. He said a name, one that didn't belong here anymore, one buried with the fire. He waited for recognition. It did not come. The captive blinked again, furrowed his brow, made his mouth move like he didn't know. He winced and looked at the ropes on his arms like that might explain his confusion. The man smiled. Only his mouth smiled. His eyes didn't change. You knew. You always knew. He stood, back straight, lifted the rifle with one hand and turned it so the carved stock faced the chair. A single name cut deep into the wood, burnt into the grain with a hot iron. Not new, not recent. Letters half worn by sand and time. The man didn't say the name. He didn't have to. The captive's chest rose once, sharp. His knuckles went white under the rope. Sweat rolled along his jawline and vanished into his collar. He looked at the name too long. The man saw it, saw the way he looked, knew the lie had cracked. He stepped forward, slow. Let the rifle drop to his side again. Metal tapped against his leg as he walked. He circled the chair once, never spoke, then stopped in front of him. The rifle came up again. Not to his head, not to his chest, to his knee. The barrel pressed hard just below the joint. The voice came quiet, dry, final. You ran. I didn't. The door opened without sound. She moved like someone who had grown up in a place where silence meant survival. Bare feet. Skirt brushed the floor. A chipped plate rested in her hands. She stepped close without looking at him. The rifleman was gone. Only the chair creaked in time with his breathing. She placed the plate on a small crate beside him. Beans. One biscuit. A tin spoon. No water. The food meant he was not dying today. He watched her hands. Thin. Strong. A burn ran along the inside of her left wrist and curved toward her elbow. His breath caught when he saw it. That scar. She stood still for a moment, chin low, shoulders drawn. She turned to leave. Sunlight through the window lit the side of her face, and he saw it clearer. A ridge above the cheekbone, pale, crooked, like skin had split and been sewn back wrong. The same mark, same angle, same depth. He remembered that scar, on someone smaller, younger. A boy. His brother. No. His brother had died in that fire. Screamed inside the barn until the roof collapsed. He had heard it from the ridge. The sound still cut through his sleep sometimes. Hooves kicking the stall walls. Wood groaning. Flame breathing fast through the loft. A child had cried, not just one. He squeezed his eyes shut. Let the memory finish. A woman's voice had split the night, screamed a single word over and over. It was not his name. It was a plea. No, no, no. He had not gone down the hill. Not then. The woman now reached for the door. Her fingers trembled slightly before she touched the handle. He stared at the back of her neck. Her hair was tied up, loosely. A few strands clung to sweat. There was a small scar just above her collarbone, too. That one he didn't recognize. That one was new. She turned the handle, paused. Her voice came soft, not broken, just flat. You were meant to die with them. Then she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her. The room sank again into heat and stillness. The food stayed untouched. His wrists ached with each pulse. His knee throbbed where the barrel had pressed. He breathed through his teeth and leaned forward just enough to watch the light crawl across the floor. He did not look at the scar again. He already knew what it meant. Darkness pressed close around the house. Dry night wind rasped against the shutters. Inside, the air held still. Only the steady creak of the old rocking chair moved through the quiet. He leaned forward again, wrist twisted hard against the rope. Blood had dried tacky around the knot. He flexed, shifted. The nail he'd worked loose with his heel finally caught. He dragged it upward slow, careful. Wood scraped, rope gave. A few fibers snapped, sharp and sudden. He froze. Silence. He held his breath. Then another twist, a harder pull. The nail bit into his palm and the rope broke free. His left hand came loose. He waited one more beat before working the other. Less blood there, less swelling. It slipped free faster. He stayed still. Let his shoulders roll once. Let the feeling return to his fingers. Then he stood. The chair rocked once behind him. The house did not stir. He stepped barefoot across the floorboards, avoided the creaking plank near the door, moved into the hall. A thin ribbon of moonlight traced the hallway. Dust floated through it. The air tasted of heat and pine smoke. He passed the rifle rack on the wall. Still empty. His fingertips brushed the wood. Rough, dry. The mark was still there. A dent from the butt of his own rifle. That fight with his brother. The day their mother buried the last colt. He kept walking. Next room. He paused in the doorway. The saddle still hung in its place. Leather cracked, edges curled from heat and age. He stepped close, ran his thumb over the horn. Scarred there, a single carved letter, deep, faded. He had cut that letter himself when he was 13. His brother had done the same beside it. Two boys with too much pride and too little sense. Now only one letter remained. The other burned away. He moved on. The far room sat wide open. Faint light spilled across the floor from a crooked lantern on a shelf. He stepped inside. She lay curled on a wool blanket near the hearth. No fire lit, just embers. Her hair spilled across her face. A pistol lay inches from her hand. He crept closer. The floor stretched wide between them. Every step carried the weight of his past. Every step brought him nearer to something he had run from. He crouched slow, reached for the gun. Fingers touched the grip. Her eyes opened. He froze. She stared at him. No words, no sound, not even breath. For a long moment, neither moved. Then she nodded. Once, he took the pistol. She walked ahead of him, barefoot in the dust. The pistol weighed heavy in his hand, but he kept it lowered. Stars blinked hard above. The wind had quieted. Nothing moved but her skirt brushing her legs and the dry ground underfoot. They passed the barn. The beams were newer than the rest of the house, nails still shiny in places. He glanced at them once, then looked away. She said nothing as they moved past the fence line. The grass grew sparse here. Soil cracked and hard. A flat stretch of earth waited near the edge of the mesquite grove. One stone, no carving, just a fist-sized rock set into dry dirt. She stopped, turned to face him. Her face was pale in the starlight, hollowed by more than hunger. She looked down at the spot. Her toes nudged the rock once. Then she crouched and brushed away the loose dirt near the base. Something small and broken lay there. He squinted, stepped closer. A child's boot, blackened on one side. Leather curled at the toe. The laces were knotted too tight, like someone had pulled them fast and never loosened them again. He knelt. His knees hit the dirt with a dull thud. The pistol hung useless from his fingers. She spoke then, voice steady, words brittle like sun-baked wood. He left us. Your father. He told us to wait in the barn. Said help was coming. Said the wind had turned. Said we'd be safe. Then he locked the doors. Fire took the east side first. Roof caved in before morning. My mother died holding the latch. Her hands dropped to her lap. She stared at the boot like it had something more to say. My brother found a way out. Crawled through the hay chute, burned his back bad. She turned her head and looked at him full. He thought you knew. His throat closed. Breath came shallow. The wind lifted a curl of her hair and set it down again. We followed the smoke to the hills. Watched you ride off. No looking back. He shook his head slow. Tried to form a word. Nothing came. She stood. He stayed kneeling. He looked down at the boot again. Dirt clung to its seams. Ants crawled over the toe and vanished under the sole. We never wanted the land, just truth. But the ground kept our dead, and your name kept its shine. Her voice lowered. You ran once. She turned from him. Her shadow stretched long across the dust. You can't walk away again. Then she left him there, kneeling beside the stone, gun limp in his hand, silence pressing in from every side. The sky held steady above him as morning threatened the edge of the black. He had not moved from the grave. Dust clung to his knees. His fingers were cramped from gripping the pistol too long, the weight of the boot still pressed in his chest. He stood slowly. The barn waded across the yard, boards gray and warped, but solid. He crossed the dirt in silence. Each step took something out of him. Each breath brought back the smell of smoke that never fully left. He moved to the old trough beside the stall wall. Years ago, he had stashed something there. He could still feel the way the wood shifted beneath his hands. He knelt and ran his palm along the underside, found the split, dug fingers in deep. The metal edge bit his skin. He pulled. The rifle came free from the hiding place. Dust clung to the barrel. He wiped it clean with his sleeve. The bolt moved smooth. The trigger held firm. He pressed the butt to his shoulder once. Familiar weight, heavy with memory. He broke it open. 3 rounds inside, still dry, still sharp. Someone had oiled it not long ago. He sat back against the barn wall, closed his eyes. The last time he held that rifle, his brother had been screaming at him, screaming across the fence, telling him to stay, telling him not to follow their father, not to leave while the sun was still up and the wind was wrong. He had not listened. He had turned the horse and galloped out across the plain. He had told himself the fire would never catch, that the barn was stone-walled, that they had time. But now he saw it. The roof had not caught first. The floor had. Hay stacked too high, oil drum too close, wind wrong. It was no accident. Someone had set the fire to close the chapter, clean the slate, leave nothing that could speak. He looked again at the rifle. His brother had dragged the woman from the blaze, burned his hands, hid her, raised her, waited for justice. He rubbed a hand over his face, felt the bristle of days-old beard, dried sweat, dirt, blood. The pieces fit now, not all, but enough. He leaned the rifle against the wall and stood. A sound broke the stillness. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate. Boots across the dry earth, coming from the far side of the house, slow, not sneaking, each step a statement. He picked up the rifle, not raised, not aimed, just held. The footsteps kept coming. He waited by the corner of the barn, fingers wrapped tight around the rifle stock. The footsteps grew louder, crisp, purposeful, then paused. A shadow stretched across the ground. He stepped out. The man froze mid-stride. Dust curled around his boots. The sun had just started to edge over the ridge. Light caught on the barrel aimed at his chest. No words at first. The man's hands stayed loose. He glanced at the rifle but did not flinch. His mouth curled into something near a smile. That old thing still work? The reply came with silence. He took a step forward. Slow. I wondered if you would dig it up. Wondered if you even remembered where it was. The barrel did not lower. Another step. Close now. You never saw the bodies, did you? He blinked once. That barn was already burning when I got there. Your father sent me in to pull them out. I broke the latch with a shovel. His voice dropped, but I was too late. He pointed toward the house with his chin. She was the only one still breathing, under a tarp, burned to the bone, eyes shut, screaming without sound. You think I came back for blood? His jaw clenched. The man's words felt like gravel in the throat. Too dry, too calm? You think this is about rage? He shook his head. No, it is about what happens after he took another step. You got to ride off, carry a name unspoiled, let the land forget. But those of us who stayed had to walk past ash, every day. Had to wonder what would have happened if you had looked back just once. The rifle trembled slightly in his grip. I buried 3 people that day. No names. No markers. Just silence. His eyes met the man's. But I remember what your father told the town. That he fought to save us. That he lost the key. That the wind shifted. That he mourned. The man chuckled. He mourned all the way to the bank. Took the land he cleared and sold it twice. He looked down at the dirt between them. I am not here to kill you. I am here to end the lie. He raised a hand and tapped 2 fingers to his chest. That name on the ledger belongs to someone who never paid for what he did. He nodded toward the rifle. And I think you know it. Silence stretched long between them. The heat began to rise. A single hawk circled far overhead. He lowered the rifle. Let the stock drop into the dust. His voice came out low. Then prove it. She stood in the doorway with something wrapped in burlap. Her hands held it close to her chest, like it might bite if not handled right. The 2 men turned as she stepped forward. No sound but her footsteps and the wind pulling across the porch. She laid the bundle on the crate by the door. Her fingers peeled the cloth back slow. Dust rose. Beneath it was a leather-bound ledger. Corners cracked, edges darkened by years of sweat and heat. She pushed it forward with her palm. He stepped close. His fingers hovered above the cover, then dropped. He opened it. The ink had bled in places, but the names were still clear, each written by hand, columns beside them, payments marked, some crossed out, others circled. The numbers rose in steady lines. All dates from the same season the fire came. He turned the page. More names, neighbors. A column labeled Reclaimed Acres. Another marked Confirmed Claims. Next to one entry, he saw the word Complete beside the name of the family that had died behind the barn door. The dates matched. His pulse crawled into his ears. She stepped closer and turned the next page for him. There, near the bottom, scrawled across the last quarter of the ledger, was his father's name. Beneath it, one final deal. Twice the acreage. Triple the gold. The line read clean. He sold it all. Sold what had to burn first. The barn. The fields. The livestock. And everything in it. He stepped back. The ledger stayed open like a wound that could not be shut. The man leaned in and tapped a single name at the top of the page. That one paid to have the land cleared before the surveyors came, but they could not clear a home with people still inside it. His voice stayed flat. So your father gave them reason. Called it an accident. Blamed the lantern, blamed the wind. Said he tried to save them. Said you were gone on a supply run. He was careful. Covered every corner except us. The woman moved again. This time, she held something small in her hand. A pendant, dull silver, shaped like a star with a chip in the middle. My mother wore this until the night she died. They were supposed to burn, too. She dropped the pendant on the ledger. We crawled through ash, buried them with our hands, walked into town and listened to your father say he lost everything. Her eyes met his. No hate, no softness. We never said a word. He swallowed hard. The taste in his throat was copper and heat. Why she looked at him? Because we kept the land, she paused. That is why you are still breathing. The ledger sat open on the table. Pages yellowed like brittle leaves. Names that should have meant harvest and kinship, now marked boundaries and bribes. He stood still, hands slack at his sides. Dust clung to the sweat on his neck. The woman stayed near the window, her brother by the door. No one moved. No one needed to. The man spoke first. This is your choice now. He stepped toward the table, laid one palm flat beside the ledger. The other rested lightly near his holster, but not in threat. Not now. You walk out of here, and it all stays buried. No lawman will dig. No neighbors will ask. The coal name keeps its shine. He tapped the book once. Or you carry this to town. Put your hand on the paper. Say the words. Say your father was no hero. Say your name. means nothing unless it carries the truth. He waited. The heat pressed against the walls. The air inside the room grew thick. His breath slowed. One hand drifted to the back of a nearby chair. Fingers closed over the worn edge. He felt the old wood, knew the notch carved there when he was 15, knew the stain that never came out after his father spilled lamp oil in the dark. He closed his eyes. The room fell away. He stood on the porch in uniform. Younger, straighter, clean hat, polished boots. His mother stood in front of him with both hands gripped around his collar. Her voice cracked from wind and grit. "Do not come back unless you are clean." He had smiled and kissed her cheek, had promised to come back with medals and pride. She had not smiled. Her eyes stayed sharp. Then she had turned and gone back inside. He had not come back clean. Not then. Not now. He opened his eyes. The man stepped back from the table. "We are not asking you to fix it. We are asking you not to run from it again." He looked at them both, then at the rifle resting against the doorframe. His brother's rifle. The one buried in dust and silence. He crossed the room. Each step felt heavier than the last. He picked up the rifle, checked the bolt, still smooth, still loaded. He did not speak. The ledger stayed where it lay, open, accusing. He stepped out into the sun. The porch boards shifted under his boots. Wind caught his shirt and tugged at the dried blood along his sleeve. The door shut behind him. He started walking, rifle in hand, toward the road, toward the edge of the truth. The sun cleared the ridgeline by the time the first dust trail curled across the valley. He stood at the edge of the porch, rifle in one hand, watching the rider draw near. Hooves cut the earth in slow, even rhythm. One man, long coat, hat pulled low. Badge caught the sun, the marshal. Behind him, the door creaked open. The woman stepped out and stood beside the broken beam. Her eyes stayed on the rider, not on the man with the rifle. The horse came to a stop 10 feet from the porch. The marshal stayed mounted for a long moment. Then he dismounted with a grunt, tied the reins to the post. His face was lined from years of sun and worse. He looked at the man in silence. "You, him," the man nodded. The woman stepped forward, held out the ledger. He took it, flipped through it once, looked at the pages like a man who had read too many lies. He closed it slow, tucked it into his saddlebag. The woman passed him another sheet, blank but for the header, county seal, legal lines waiting for ink. She offered the pen to the man. He took it. The table had been dragged outside. Sunlight warmed its surface. He sat, signed. No hesitation. Just name, place, and date. He stood again and faced the marshal. "My name is not worth their bones." The marshal looked at him a long time. "You want anything out of this?" He shook his head. "Just mark the grave." Marshal glanced toward the grove. His mouth tightened. Then he walked to his horse, pulled the saddlebag up with both hands, cinched it, adjusted the rifle on his back. He mounted in one smooth motion. Boots settled into the stirrups. He looked once more at the man, nodded, then turned the horse toward the east. Dust kicked up in his wake. The sound of hooves faded into the wide, dry quiet. The man stood still. Behind him, the woman stepped down from the porch. Her hands brushed the front of her dress. No words passed between them. The ledger was gone, but the weight of it remained, pressed into the air, stretched across the dirt, hung between breath and silence. The rider vanished behind the hill. The truth was moving now, and it could not be taken back. He worked slow with the blade. Stone crumbled under each pass. The sun leaned high behind his shoulders. Sweat gathered in the hollow of his spine and ran down his back. The rock was white and stubborn, flat on one side, heavy in his lap. He carved the first name with care. The letters came out rough, uneven, but they stood. The second name was harder. He paused once, let his thumb trace the space before cutting into it. Dust clung to the lines where the chisel scraped. When he finished, He laid the blade down beside him, rubbed the grit from his palms, sat back, and looked at what he had made. The stone said enough. He carried it to the grave with both arms, knees bent, shoulders braced. The ground gave under his boots with a dry whisper. He set it down in the earth where the boot had once rested. No marker now but this. He stood over it, looked at the names again, then turned. The rifle waited by the porch, the old one, his father's. He walked slow, picked it up with both hands. The barrel caught the sun. The stock still bore the scratch from the boyhood hunt. He pressed it once against his hip, then walked it back to the stone. He laid it gently across the top, wood on stone, legacy on truth. The heat pressed in close. No sound but wind in the grass and the creak of the old porch behind him. He turned his head and saw her there. She stood near the door, one hand resting on the frame, the other at her side, barefoot, still. Her eyes never left him. Her brother stepped out a moment later. He joined her without a word, just stood there, shoulder to shoulder, watching. No voice broke the air, no gesture passed between them. Only the stillness. A hawk cut across the sky high above, its wings spread wide. A slow spiral, shadow rolling over the dirt. He looked up once, then lowered his gaze. The grave was quiet now. The names would stay. He took a breath, let it fill his ribs, let it settle the tremble in his limbs. Then he turned from the stone and walked. The sun caught the side of his face. The wind lifted dust behind his boots. His shadow stretched long in front of him as he crossed the dry field. He did not speak. He did not stop. He did not look back. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, and comment on the Old Western Tales.